There we are, baby. We are officially live. And let me make sure I go live on Instagram. Y'all, we're talking about how to do the work in marriage. Britt, holla at the people, man, while I get Instagram up and running.
Hey, it's Friday and it's almost Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to anyone who's a mother that is listening or listening to this replay. We're just really excited to be able to bring this information to you today. I said, I don't know where I said it earlier this week. I said, we've learned how to do a lot of this the wrong way so that we can hopefully continue to help people to shorten the learning curve and have a lot less arguments, a lot less pain, and a lot less days lost. So we just want to dive in today and talk to you about how to do the work together. I think that's a term that gets tossed around a lot lately. And so what does that look like to do it together in marriage and business? And that's what we're excited to talk about today.
Totally, man. And so, again, one of the things that I also want to address is like the vision for the podcast or the live stream series in general, our entrepreneur family. We work alongside one another. You can think of me like CEO, her like COO, although that is even shifting within our business. And we've worked together in total different dynamics. We'll get into a little bit of our story. But our children are like starting to get involved. They always are in the background. My daughter, our oldest daughter, Ava, has spoken with me on stage before. We've recorded a song before. I know it is sweet, and they've helped out. They've set up for events. They've done different things, and so like we got our own unique combination. And what we see is like, man, there's so many complexities to doing life and business together with your spouse, with your significant other. We see people where the woman is kind of the face of the organization and the man's kind of the supporter. We've seen it where the man is the face and the woman's the supporter. We've seen it where they're both like, co-reigners in the business. What's up, everybody? I see Brandy's on here. What's up, Courtney? Excited to see you. Sydney, excited to see you. I don't know Paul Papes Designs. Good to see you. Man, let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know if there's anything specifically we can address for you on today's stream. We'll probably go for like 20, 30 minutes. And then we got other stuff to do. But all these complexities, right? Are the children involved? Is one of them an entrepreneur? And how do we teach entrepreneurship to our children? And like all the different little combinations and dynamics of entrepreneur families is so important. And we've seen it make or break marriages. We've seen it make or break families. We've seen it create deeper intimacy or create awkwardness and divisiveness and distance in relationships. And so our heart for this is really to bring it all to the table. I almost start singing the Zach Williams song. Bring it all to the table, right? Like just bring it all to the table, talk about it, because, what you can never conquer what you're unwilling to confront. And there's so many things in life that, man, if you just confront it, if you just talk about it, as my friend Parker likes to say, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And so we're doing that today, just bringing it all on the table in hopes that, we can offer some insights, some tools, some strategies, some things that we learned along the way that can literally help you. I see Sydney says, I know a lot of high achieving women who earn advanced degrees and they already have the mindset of achieving things, not getting together with a man to do so. I get that for real. And for us, like, it's like, what's up, Gary? I see you. It's like it's not a thing where it's like someone has to become less. The key is that both people are standing in their power.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's get into just a little backstory, a little journey here. Okay. Where do we want to start? Okay. I met Brittany in college before we were changed and transformed by Christ. And it was ugly. She was promiscuous. I was promiscuous. She was unfaithful. I was unfaithful. And that was our introduction to one another. Was unfaithfulness, and there was like a little bit of trying to date, but not really. Just a whole tattered beginning. Fast forward, we graduate from college, we start going to the same church. The joke that we always say is that we started doing Bible studies together, and the Bible studies turned into body studies. And
That's
And
Daryl's joke. Darryll likes to
I
tell that
know.
joke.
What's up, Lori? What's up, Lori? I see you, Tanya. Yeah, I do like to tell that because it was, like let's just hang out and study the Bible, and then it's like studying that body. And then we had our first daughter, and man, I didn't plan to be in a long-term relationship with her. We actually started off joint custody, not like legally, but just made a plan that this is how we're going to parent. And man, that was a hard season to live through. And to shorten that, ultimately, God spoke to me in a dream one night, showed me that I was scared of commitment, and I literally proposed within or I went and got the ring like that weekend and proposed in like a week or two from that moment.
Mm,
And then we started, and it was kind of like, okay, we're married now. It's going to fix everything.
yeah.
Um, Let me actually backtrack. I want to say this part of the story. One of the things that helped me is like I was doing a lot of counseling at that time, and I was talking about should I marry this person who I'm having this child with? I don't even know if we had a child at the time, but I remember her saying to me, my counselor, being like, "You're talking about this as if somebody's forcing you to be with her. Like, what are you afraid of?"
Mm,
And I said out of my mouth, "I'm afraid that I would lose my helper." And there's a scripture that talks about wife being a helper. Okay. And I said that, I was like, dang, that means I'm just scared. And so, anyways, we ended up, and I bring that up because I we always have worked well together as business teammates,
yeah.
right? I'm really people. I'm visionary. She's very operational, detailed, and so it always was a great supplement. But man, interpersonally, not so much. In our marriage, not so much. And even there was even a high behind like, hey, we're working in our strengths, but like our trust isn't there, so we can't run at the pace that we are really called to run because we've got
Yeah.
personal challenges, inner dynamics, like issues. Okay,
Yeah.
and so that's why I bring that point up. So, super hyper speed through the story. We worked in ministry together. Man, I launched my speaking business where she was kind of always doing details and stuff and like handling my PowerPoint design, still does some of that stuff for me. Um, to the season that we're in right now, which is very interesting. It's a new season for us because she's actually going through the process that we take our clients through to turn her message into a movement. How's that feel, Britt?
Mhm. Mhm. Get
Literally had an
there.
ideation session with me, and like it's to
Mhm.
go from some people who couldn't receive from each other, who argued, who had opposing views, who literally there's moments in our story where I'm having success, she won't celebrate it. I'm too busy focusing on me and treating her as if she's lesser than in the business, and it's like so much of that to now we're in a season where we have enough trust in our relationship where she will open herself up to be coached in her deepest parts of her story by me.
Yeah.
Hard stop.
Yeah.
Hard stop. You can only move in life to the degree in which you have trust.
Yeah.
You can only move as fast as you have trust. And trust is sometimes we can live in a facade that, oh, we're good, we like each other, but it's tested in the fire. It's tested when we disagree. It's tested when we see things differently. That's where the trust is really, really, really
Yeah.
tested. And
Yeah.
so it's a beautiful season that we're in. We got three specific things that we want to address on this live stream. Okay. Thing number one is the power of having common language. The power of having common language. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Number two is how that affects the business. And then number three is like, where do you begin? Okay, like how
Yeah.
can you start navigating the new level of your entrepreneur family, your entrepreneurial makeup, whatever it is that you want to call it. Okay, so I said a lot. I got to learn how to be quiet more so my wife can talk.
You want to talk
Yeah.
about a new season? It's funny because we host events together, and there was a long time where it was like I was in the back, like running the background and like getting the papers printed and checking people in, and I never said anything. And now, I have a lot more to say, but I'm still patiently waiting. But it's also good. I think that for me, what I really was excited to talk about today is this idea of like doing the work. And it actually, the concept started for me a couple years ago when I started reading the book. Dr. Nicole LePera has Do the Work, or How to Do the Work. And I think through the last few years, and it's just really become more common language. But to me, doing the work just means this internal personal development, working through the things that are of your past and the things that you subconsciously bring to the table in your everyday life that are there for you to heal and look at and work through so that you can continue to grow and level up and make a bigger impact and be more honest with yourself, be more honest with the people that you're leading. There's only so much available for you to do in the realm of impact when there are, more layers for you to work through. Like your impact is very limited by the amount of work that you've done. Thank you, Justin. I see your let's go. I'm excited to see your second TEDx talk, man. So to me, the first thing that I really was excited to talk about, this idea of common language. Now, years ago, like 10 years ago, we went through a marriage class at a church and we read the Relationship Cycles book. I couldn't even tell you the actual name of it, but they introduced this idea of common language. And there's pink and there's blue, and your husband is always speaking in blue, and you guys may be saying the same thing, but it comes out completely differently because she's speaking in pink and he's speaking in blue. It's the same thing when you get to be able to do the work together. There's some common language, and we'll get into some of the specifics of what that looks like and how that sounds in our home and in our business and in our life, because it immediately takes it off of like, hey, this is I'm right, you're wrong, this is my perspective, this is your perspective. And it's like, no, hold on, we can come to the table with a common understanding that we both know what we're saying, and it cuts the conversation in half because we both understand what we're trying to communicate just through that common language. So I don't know, honey, did you want to like start with any specific phrase, or I can, or what do you feel like has been the most helpful in terms of common language?
Well, it's funny. Things that have were helpful. It's like everything was helpful. Every tool empowered us to get a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, primarily what I want to address today is like, the most recent language around our patterns, what's yours, what's mine, that type of thing. I think that's probably been the biggest shift in the last 3, 4 years in our marriage and
Yeah.
our ability to do life and business together. Um, so
What does that mean to you? Like, what's yours? What's mine? Like, what, in a nutshell, like, what does that mean to you?
So we have our conscious thoughts and we have our subconscious beliefs, which
Yeah.
depending on whatever research you see, no matter what research you read, it's clear that our subconscious beliefs affect the majority of our behavior. Okay,
Yeah.
so our actions are driven by things that are programmed within our subconscious beliefs. So even though I consciously, intentionally plan to love and serve and do business at a high level together and have and co-reign in our marriage, it is subconsciously there's belief patterns around insecurity, not feeling good enough.
Yeah.
And prior to understanding that language, it felt like we were always at odds. It felt like we were always in disagreement. It felt like we were always trying to like figure out like who's right in this situation. When we started to be able to have a level of awareness around, okay, okay, okay. I tell this story a lot from stage, so I'll just tell this one as an example. I think it's easier to understand an example at this level.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So we used to get in these arguments all the time about the way that she talks to me. Okay. I'm clearly black. She's clearly white. Where I'm
Yep.
from, I was programmed that women don't talk to men like they don't raise their voice, they don't get cop an attitude. Um, and more specifically, culturally, if I'm honest, white women dang sure don't talk to a black man like that. Because black women can get away with it in our culture. It's like, they can, it's almost kind of like a point of pride, right? Like, oh, she
Mhm.
telling him off, she told him. But like white women, no way. It don't matter if we married, not married, they're gonna gang jump you if a white woman start talking to a black man that way. And so when she would talk to me and raise her voice, and sometimes just like sometimes it was nasty, right? Like she got a little attitude problem. And then other times it was just like her like actually standing up for herself in the marriage. And I would get so triggered by that, and I would snap off on her, and I'd be like, I don't know who you talking to. I do this, I do that, I do this. And then when it was really bad, this is what I tell from stage. I'll be like, I'm not your slave. I am not your slave. Right? Extreme. We getting real and raw today, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And so to shorten the story, now that happened for years. Okay. I'm in counseling for all of life, addressing this dynamic, and my counselor is like, "Hey, Darryll, the way you describe the situation, it doesn't sound like you're angry. It sounds like you're hurt."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "No, I'm pissed. I'm pretty mad." And then she's like, "Well, based on what you said, it sounds like you're just more like your feelings are hurt." It took some time, some sessions for me to actually accept that that was what was going on, because growing up subconsciously, white women don't talk to black men this way. Anger was a permissible emotion to feel.
Yep.
Hurt
You
was
were allowed to show that.
I was allowed to display anger. It made sense.
Yeah.
But if I displayed a vulnerable emotion like hurt, I was weak. I was a pussy or a bitch. And so it was a hard thing for me to accept. So the challenge she gave me is, how about next time you feel triggered, you feel angry, how about you breathe and and talk about your feelings being hurt. So I'll never forget, we're in the middle of the argument, going at it. I can't tell you what we were arguing about. Literally, like same old thing. She's raising her voice. I'm getting all boiled up and hot. And I'm like, getting ready to give her "you're not my slave" language, or "what this, you don't talk to me like this. I'm the man. I do all this. I did this for our family." And my counselor's thing was rolling through the back of my mind, and I go, "Man, you
Mm-hmm.
like, it's hard to say as a man, like, you hurt my feelings. I couldn't even let it out my mouth. I'm like, choking on it. She's probably looking at me like I'm weird. And I'm like, that kind of hurt my feelings. Oh my God, I felt like my balls got 2 sizes smaller when I said it. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Where my man at? Don't leave me hanging over here. I felt like my balls got two sizes smaller when I said that. You hurt my feelings. Now, here's what happened for her. Yeah. Oh. What? Totally different response. And what that started to do is we realized that in the heat of those arguments, that part of it was primarily my subconscious triggers from the way that I was raised and what I thought was acceptable and not acceptable, both from a woman talking to a man, or a white woman in this instance talking to a black man, and the emotion that I was allowed to display. That's my pattern. That is my subconscious belief system that is primarily causing the dynamic in this argument. And the clarity of that, and it's not about who's right and who's wrong and who's stuff. It's not a point of finger. It's that we can't correct something. Listen to me, y'all should write this down. If we do not have the proper diagnosis.
Yep.
We cannot correct something if we don't have the proper diagnosis. If you go to the doctor and you have a problem, right now I've got a problem with my shoulder. If they look at my body and they go, "Oh, okay, it's actually not your shoulder, it's actually your L4, L5 disc." If I try to fix the shoulder and it's not the shoulder, I'm going to make the shoulder worse. If I identify it's because of the misalignment in the disc, I can correct the disc and it'll fix the shoulder. You got to have correct diagnosis. You got to get to the root of what the actual problem is in order to resolve it, or else it will repeat itself in a marriage. That's an example. That's my subconscious belief affecting the predominant thing in this argument. Brett, what do you got to say on that?
Yeah, it's really good. It takes a few things I want to point out. You said you were in counseling, and so it took like whatever argument began that whole like train, yeah, it happened, it ran its course, but it took going back to someone else, someone safe. If you don't have a counselor, it's your journal, it's a video journal, a written journal, whatever that looks like. You take it to prayer, take it to a trusted friend. You took time to step away and assess what was happening so that the next time it happened, you had a clearer separation from it. Like when we are so entangled in the heat of the moment, it's whatever your pattern is and your like subconscious programming that Darryl's saying, whatever that is so closely intertwined with who you are as a person. It's really hard for your ego to be like, okay, yeah, maybe I should look at that. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, right. That's like, that doesn't happen very easily. But if you separate it, and a lot of a good way to try to separate it is through reflection and having conversations and pulling apart. Hey, I am me in my highest divine self, and that is not the same as my pattern. I am not my pattern. This is something that I was programmed. This is something that maybe, yeah, I've like ran on autopilot for years and years and years. I don't even know where it came from, but I am not that. I am me in all of my highest divine self in the way that God sees me. So that's the first thing I want to point out is like, you wouldn't have even had the ability to stop in the heat of the moment if you hadn't done that work outside of the heat of the moment to try to separate the two. Say like, hey, this is something that is coming up. And so the point of like, just to bring it back to the main point of like common language is to say, in this example, it's like, hey, this is mine to own. This comes from me in my past. And whatever Brittany's doing to influence the situation, yes, also has a place to be addressed, but those are two separate things. And so what is mine to work through and what is yours to work through? And because we come from such different places, really we have to go do that work on our own. I can be a good mirror for you, but only to a certain point, because number one, I'm not a counselor. Number two, I didn't come from where you come from, and vice versa. Like there's a good mirror that you can hold for me, but there's also a level of work that I need to go do within myself to reflect and to look at like, hey, what is driving this? Because I guarantee whatever caused that friction, that's not the first time that root caused an issue in your life. So being able to go reflect, see what is mine to work through, like legit, you guys, we will get done with conversations or passionate conversations or arguments or whatever sometimes, and I'll say, okay, this is the things that are for me to work on, and he'll say, okay, these are the things for me to work on. Because sometimes there's stuff to be addressed within the relationship mutual, together. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like legit, I need to go do individual internal work, and it just won't show up again the same way because I worked it out within myself. So I think that's one. We can, if you want to go into how it affects the business, or if you feel like there's other common language. I'm just trying to, just the idea of like my pattern, what's mine, what's yours. Honestly, it's so elementary, but using I statements, like, okay, I hear you, I see how that affected you, like affirming with an I statement, or like, I feel like this is what you're doing versus this is what you're doing. Because in a conscious conversation, and this is so much of what's come from us doing the work over the last few years, I think we get into a really bad habit, as honestly, we almost get like lazy with our language to say, this is just the way it is. Like we make a lot of definitive statements. And what I've noticed over the last few years is we really have changed our language a lot to say like, this may be, this is is it like, what else is here? Like, what else is possible? It's opening up your mind in such a way that it's like, hey, things aren't as black and white as you think. There's like more of a fluidity in the way that we look
Mhm.
at things and the way that we think about things. And there's
Mhm.
a curiosity, right? Like, well, what if it's not
Mhm.
this? What else could it be? And just like being more
Yep.
curious versus assuming, or
Yep.
just really it's shown up in the language of, hey, I feel like this may be how you're feeling, rather than like,
Mhm.
obviously you're feeling this way. Because I don't know. I can't make any assumptions and I really don't know. And I think that is one of the biggest things I'm being on the journey. Like, I was just listening to the podcast that you did with Steve Monahan. Go check it out. It's on Darryl's YouTube channel. It's called Seeding Greatness with a mentor of ours. It's an amazing conversation. It's worth the 90-minute listen, like for real, for real. But Steve said something. He was like, the more you learn, you honestly feel smart and dumb at the same time, because you're like, oh, I'm learning so much and I'm realizing how much I didn't know. So adopt that same mentality. Like, I want to learn more about you, with the understanding that like I really don't know the answer. And that doesn't make
Mhm.
me dumb. That puts me in a position of power, because now I can be curious about
Mhm.
what else is there. And that is
Mhm.
one of the best ways to do the work together, is to stop making assumptions about how your
Yep.
partner feels. Stop making assumptions about how you're showing up. And that's been really
Yep.
hard for me, to be like, okay, why do you see it that way? And it may take me
Mhm.
a bit of arguing to actually ask that question, but he'll say some things like, hey, I see you doing this. I see you doing this. And sometimes I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, no, I'm not. But the turning point in the conversation is always, okay, well, how do you see that?
Mhm.
Even if I don't agree, I can at least suspend my belief long enough to
Yep.
listen, because
Yep.
not usually there's so much there that I'm not seeing. Because
Mhm.
I mean, you say all the time, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle, but it's like, just ask the question.
Yep.
What do you mean? How do you see it that way? Why are you saying that? So I think
Yep.
that's all I've got on that. If you have more, if you want to go to the next one.
Yeah, I got stuff. A couple of things. Number one, hey, if you're just tuning in, this is our Entrepreneur Family Live podcast stream. We're talking about, specifically on this episode, how to do the work together in marriage. We're kind of traveling this. We're kind of like touching on it a little bit everywhere, of like common language, how it affects the biz, where to begin. Let us know if there's specific questions that you might have. We'd love to address them live on the podcast there. And if not, like, let us know what you're taking away. Okay. The interaction is good. Like, if you guys were in person, we'd be able to hear the amens. We'd be able to hear the yes. We'd be able to know what resonates. We'd be able to know where to dig in more, where to dig in less, versus just like up here, like verbally vomiting. Okay. So we are watching the comments. We're looking at you. I see Elisa just joined. I see Raymond. I see you. Sam, what's up, Sam? Jacqueline, it's good to see y'all. Okay. Justin, thank you for chiming in. Okay. Instagram doesn't let us share your comments. So if you actually want to have it shared on the screen for whatever reason, you got to go over to Facebook or one of the other platforms. I think even YouTube will let us share it. Um, how it affects the business. Where do we start? The one thing I want to say about common language is like, yeah, the language is important. And I think the paradigm is important as well, like common paradigms, right? It's like we got to be
Mm-hmm.
on the same page. And I don't think we addressed this enough. We probably should have like said why in the beginning. There was we've tried to live our life in silos so much. It's like, hey, I got my relationship with God. I got my marriage. I've got my family, my kids. I've got my business. And it's like we sometimes think that they're siloed, when in reality they're all connected, because the center is you, right? You're in the
Mm-hmm.
marriage, you're the parent, you're in the social relationships, you're in the business. So one of the things that I feel like we finally got to the same page around, same paradigm around, is like, hey, although we're having this thing in marriage, this directly affects our business. This same dynamic that we're arguing about in our marriage affects our business, and vice versa. We hit a snag in business and we kind of want to just like, all right, cool, we'll just go into our separate corners and keep working. It's like, it's only going to be a matter of time before that shows up in the relationship as well, right? Like, in a kind of a beginner's way of kind of understanding this. Is like, obviously, if we get into a little doozy about a work issue that we're facing, it's gonna be kind of hard to be intimate at night because we're gonna be like, man, you yelled at me at work earlier. You know what I mean? Or we didn't have the best work day, and now we're carrying that over.
Mm,
That's one way. But this dynamic that we're struggling with within ourselves to have intimacy within our relationship is affecting our ability to serve the world at a higher level. And I think
mhm.
that's a really, really big point, because I think sometimes we try to make it about only intimacy in the relationship. And we forget about the importance of the effectiveness within our business and the impact of how many people we can reach and impact if we just lean into these areas of discomfort and start to find different ways of moving and being.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that that's a very important, part. So, hey, that's how it affects the business, right? The dynamic that I described earlier around how she talks to me and all that. Oh my gosh, that was all over our business. There's areas where she wouldn't even speak up because she didn't want to create the argument that we had in marriage in the business. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I
False,
don't know if
just
this is
false
right.
peacekeeping.
He's got this vision. He seems excited about it. He thinks this person is the right person to hire as a coach. He's plugged in. Okay, I can't say anything because when I say it in our marriage, it's an argument. So if I say it in business, it might be an argument. So she was stifling her own voice and influence within the business out of fear for something that was happening in the relationship. Oh, that's so good. Do y'all get
That's
that?
good. Yeah, that's
Y'all get
good.
that? And vice versa. Vice versa. Okay. Um, where to begin? Several places to begin. Okay. Number one, I think coming together and being like, hey, let's make a commitment to do this work together. We already know
Yeah.
we have stuff. We know one of the things to identify is when you have the same argument over and over and over again, the same argument. How you talk to me, how I talk to you, what you get to do, what I don't get to do. If it's the same argument over and over again, that is a area to start. It's the area to start. The reason why it keeps happening again and again is because it's in the way of the divine service that's trying to come through your life. And your
Yeah.
unwillingness to address it is robbing the world of your collective gift. So I think coming
Well, let me,
together, we had a moment. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
oh, I thought you were going to the next point. I wanted to talk about that one real quick.
Go for it. You seem
It
ready.
what came up for me when you said that was, see, that's even more common language. What's coming up for you? Like this, anyways. When you said that, here's what I thought. You were like, hey, go look at the things that you've been arguing over repeatedly for the last few years. Start there. Someone who's new to this journey, that has a potential to be terrifying,
Yeah.
because why in the world would I dig into the place that catches fire the quickest and the most often? Like, why would I start there? You don't have to go jump back into an argument and try to solve it from there, but come to the table and say, hey, I can see that we repeatedly argue over A and B and C, and I would really like to get to the root of it and be able to move beyond that in our relationship. I'm committed to working through this as an individual and together. Are you committed to that with me? Like, are we making a commitment to each other to look at that? So we're
Mhm.
not suggesting that you go jump right back into it and try to hash it out. That's silly, because you haven't made any other decision to do it differently. There's nothing that says you're not going to argue again this afternoon if you do that. But having a outside look and literally talking about it, not trying to get on the inside of it and fix it, but say, hey, this is an issue I would love to move
Mhm.
through. Can we do that together? And then,
Yeah.
and then go from there. That's it.
Totally. And again, I can't overemphasize the point of like why we're doing this. We're doing this because yes, we want a closer relationship. We're also doing this because we recognize that when we are good or when we are on the same page, that we can make a bigger impact in the world. Okay. In both our internal, it's like closest, so marriage in our relationship
Yeah.
with our children, if you have them, in our relationship with our coworkers, if you have them, or our employees, in our relationship with the world and how we serve them. That is the why. Okay, that is the why. Man, we actually have a call here in like a couple of minutes. We got to go, but obviously, let us know where y'all want us to dig more in. We can obviously come back and do another live stream next week. We want to do these every Friday,
Yep.
around 11 or noon. Okay, and it's not always going to be us. We interview people. Go check out the YouTube channel on my personal YouTube page. Is where we host these replays, and you'll see the first stream that we did with Tamara Andress and her husband Gary. Really potent, powerful conversation. We know so many entrepreneur family dynamics that we want to interview them and see what their best practices are, et cetera, et cetera. Brittany mentioned a resource, and I want to give you guys a couple other resources to dig into. She talked about Do the Work by Nicole Lepore. Okay, it was really helpful for her in her personal journey. I actually haven't read the book, but I know that it was a big part of her being open to having these conversations. Might be a good place
Yep.
to start.
Yeah.
Okay. Another resource, which is funny, I've read more of it. I don't know if she's read the whole thing. She's read bits and pieces. Is a book called Crucial Conversations. Okay. Crucial Conversations. Let me see if I can Google it real quick to look up the author. Crucial Conversations would be it's I can't even see, it's too small. Um Authors. Oh, it's co-authored by multiple people. So Carrie Patterson, Joseph Grinny, Al Switzler, Ron McMillan. It has a red cover. Okay. Crucial
Yeah, it's a red book.
Conversations.
Hmm.
Okay, really helpful book because it talks about what happens when our emotions get high and how we literally are you lose access to parts of our brain. So when you're in the heat of it, it's like they got some really practical tools of how you have crucial conversations, not just with it's actually a business book. So it's actually about crucial conversations in work, but it dramatically helped us within doing the work together in marriage.
Yeah.
Um, Oh, I don't know what to send them on consciousness and that type of stuff, or patterns. But man, I would look into literature around our subconscious beliefs and how they affect our actions. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are all great places to start. So if you just come together and you make an agreement, we're gonna do this because we want closer relationship, we want a more intimate, thriving relationship for its full potential. Okay.
Yep.
And because we want to better serve the world in our community, et cetera, et cetera. Start there, dig into some of these resources,
Yeah.
have an open-ended conversation. Don't play the blame game. I don't win when we walk away feeling like something was her thing.
Yep.
Okay. Like when we walk away feeling with her feeling ashamed or guilty about that. I don't win. I win because we are on the same page, moving in the same direction. So
Yep.
there's sometimes where I got to dig heavier into something, where she has to dig heavy into something. There's not a like you versus me mentality or paradigm. It's a us together. No matter whose thing is on the table, it's just a lily pad to the next thing. It's gonna be primarily my
Yeah.
thing, then primarily her thing, then this co-creation that we're having. So we cannot correct what we don't have a proper diagnosis on. So
Yeah.
make curiosity be the heartbeat of these conversations,
Yes.
and togetherness be the spirit of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Super
That's kind
good.
of my closing thoughts. All right. So y'all, that's it for today. Went into a lot. Felt like we barely scratched the surface, which is okay because there's a lot that goes into this. Let us know what resonated. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. Let us know what questions you might have, and we're happy to dig in on future episodes. Britt,
That's it. Happy Friday.
happy Friday. All right. Peace, y'all.